Should I drain my 401k to pay off my credit card debt? I'm 23, bringing in about $40,000 a year. I've racked up nearly $10,000 of credit card debt, and I'm drowning trying to stay afloat. The interest rate is nearly 30%. I've tried looking for personal loans to consolidate with a better rate, but multiple lenders have already denied me. I have enough of my 401k to pay off the debt in full. Would it be a bad idea to cash it out to finally pay this debt off?
My eyes twitching a little bit. I love the question. This person's 23. They're thinking through it, like you just said, we don't know where to start. And someone who's 23, they don't know where to go for this type of question. But the short answer is, and probably 99% of the time, I'm not going to tell you to cash in or money on your 401k to pay off credit card debt. I just think that we're just looking for like a fast approach to get this paid off quickly because we just know it's bad and want to get rid of it. But it's not going, first off, you're going to be hit with penalties and fees to do that because you can't touch your 401k at 23. But also taking money from your 401k just to pay off credit card debt teaches you nothing about how you got into credit card debt in the first place. So I think that's my biggest thing is the money in there? Great. But would I take away from my future to pay off past of whatever's on these credit cards? Absolutely not. I think it's a horrible idea. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the question because I feel like for a lot of people, the reason they get into their financial journey, the reason they start with their finances is because they're in a place that they don't necessarily enjoy, right? And I feel like for a lot of people, it's I want to get out of debt.
Yep.
And there's always a good amount of people who have I don't know about a shortcut to get out of debt, whether that's cashing in their 401k or they happen to have some money in savings or they can take like a personal loan from family or something. And like you said, like the worst part about it is that it doesn't teach you anything about staying out of debt in the future. Especially with situations like this, where if you can kind of take a little shortcut and say, hey, like I can do, this thing over here and it's going to get me out of debt right away. Is that a good idea? I mean, aside from the things you talked about the retirement side of it, right? Like limiting that potential growth into the future, the penalties, the fees, all that kind of stuff. Like you're not learning anything about staying out of debt in the future and you're not correcting the behavior that put you there, right? Like if you're making $40,000 a year and you racked up $10,000 of credit card debt, like who knows? This could have been in the last year, could have been in the last several years, but like that tells me you definitely have some sort of a spending issue, like you probably don't make enough income and then you probably have inflated your lifestyle a little bit to where now building up the credit card debt is just like, that's become the habit that you've fallen into and taking this kind of shortcut, it just never fixes it. And you'll probably end up in the same place like a year or 2 years down the road again. Yeah.
I always talk about this, but my debt-free journey was not a fast one. I had to slowly work my way out of it. It took me almost 3 years to do so. But in that time frame, I created so many good habits, and now those have stayed with me, and I've really created a good foundation to build my financial future on. That's the problem with these, quick fixes here. It doesn't fix anything, and then you're right back to where you were, and now you don't have your 401k to fall on. You know what I mean? And then in the future, you can be like, that was such a bad idea to take this out. I feel like when you're 23. Yeah, you're coming out of college, probably fresh out of college, actually. You're trying to still go out with friends, still live your lifestyle, but $40K a year is not much, especially depending on where you're living and, what your rent is and everything like that. But I feel like at 23, you have such an opportunity. Just continue living like a college student, like a broke college student, maybe get a second job. Like you need to suffer a little bit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You need to figure this out sooner rather than later, because if you go into your later 20s, your 30s with credit card debt, it's just going to keep spiraling upward and your habits are never going to change. So I feel like this person could really use like a second job, really just start hammering these and learn some valuable lessons on credit cards and how not to use them, because obviously they haven't used them well, up to this point. So I don't have gentle advice for this. You just have to go for it, and it's going to take some time. Sure. 10,000 is not, it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot, but for someone making $40,000 a year, it is a lot of money, especially sitting at nearly, 30% interest. Now, are there other things they could look into, potentially? And I hate to give it, I hate to talk through this sometimes because I think, again, you don't learn the behavior change to make it happen. But, if there's a 0% interest card, you've proven to yourself that you're working to pay these off. You're not using them anymore. You're not putting any more debt on these. Could you consider it at that point to help pay it off a little bit quicker? Absolutely. Even like And there's different programs where you don't have to consolidate into a loan. You know, she's saying multiple, or whoever's saying multiple lenders have denied them. There's other ways to go about it too. Even just getting on sort of like a payment plan, where it just puts it all into one plan or one payment for you. But yeah, I think this person has a lot to learn here. And the only way you're going to learn is if you, pull up your bootstraps and get going.
Yeah. Oh, Lauren, you boomer. No, I'm just kidding. I feel like the problem with this, though, is like when you lay out these facts on paper, it absolutely would make sense for them to, you know, what are you going to get inside of your 401k? Maybe 8 to 10%, like depending on what your company offers. Yeah. And those credit cards are charging you 30%. Like on paper, it probably makes sense to pull out, take the hit with the penalties and fees and then pay off the credit card debt, and you can kind of start fresh. But like I said, like the problem is like, this person is only looking at like the numbers on paper. They're not looking at the things that led them to get there. You know, like they're not looking at, and that's why I always tell people like the best place to start is like one, like figure out all the details around your debt and your income and things like that. Like get all the numbers in order. But then like, how did you actually get into debt? Like you got to be like very real with yourself. And that's something this person probably has to do as well, is like what caused you to rack up $10,000 of credit card debt? Like if it's the spending issues, like, yeah, using the 401k to wipe it out, or like you had said, if they got like a 0% credit card, like it's not teaching them as much as if they were to go through that whole process. Now, like granted, if there's a few situations where it's like, all right, I had like a one-time emergency, like I had to go to the hospital, I didn't have health insurance, or my car broke down, you know, something like that. It's like, all right, that's more understandable. It's less about let's change the behavior, and it's more about let's set up the actual, like the other areas of your finances to be able to handle blows like that. But yeah, I think this person would be better off. Like it's funny because I always think about it this way in my head. Like sometimes what makes sense on paper is not always the best way. Like sometimes the fastest way to get there is not actually going to be what's going to be the best for your future potential growth. You know, like paying off the credit card with your 401k is the fastest way you can get out of debt, but it's probably not going to be the thing that's going to teach you the discipline and the skills to build wealth in the future, stay out of debt in the future, build up like a massive emergency fund and have a really solid retirement. Like you said, this person has to go through, I think, a few hard things to understand what got them into the debt, how to get out of it, and then what they should actually be doing with their money into the future. Yeah,
and I hope that they've stopped using their credit cards already, because they honestly, they're getting themselves into a very slippery slope here. 10K is going to spiral very quickly. When $40,000 a year is not much take home. Like I said, a lot of that's probably going to rent, depending on if they're, you know, living in an apartment or something like that. True. But this can be a scary situation. But like I said, at 23, you have an opportunity to change your entire life. Get this paid off within 2 years, probably. Yeah. And then your late 20s, you're starting to build your income. Obviously, your income is going to continue to go up depending on what field you're in. But then you set yourself up for a much better future. Because right now you're headed down a really bad path, I think. The information, opinions, and recommendations provided on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not constitute professional financial advice. Any financial decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are your responsibility. We strongly recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any significant financial decisions. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that we are not liable for any financial outcomes.